Let's go. Let's go. Yeah. So this is, something interesting I wanted to share right off the bat, and this is something you will, um, you'll hear more as you get into the real estate brokerage world, right? Once you have your license, you have to hang it somewhere.
Yep.
And bro, I it's something that I've been seeing in the brokerage world for, I've been I was a broker owner for 3 years. I was just a real estate agent for seven before that. But the traditional real estate brokerages are dying, like a very quick death. Um, it's like Remax, which who I used to be with, is they're down to like less than 50,000 agents in America, which is like Remax was over 100,000 in the last 3 years. They've lost like 30,000 agents. The Keller Williams, EXP, they're all um oh, got one guy trying to get on right now. Let me share this with them. um uh Keller Williams, EXPs, like I get the reports for who's like recruiting, where agents are going, things of that nature, just because I'm like in broker world. And um they are losing as many agents as they're gaining, right? It's like the traditional companies that have been uh here we go, give it to them. Yeah, the traditional companies that have been kind of dominating the space are um all right, you got it, are are losing agents at like a fairly rapid level. I also think so. There were 1.7 million real estate agents at the beginning or during COVID is when it peaked, right?
Okay.
And about 2 years ago, when things started to get difficult, rates went up, people started to leave the industry because it got hard again. And we're down to 1.5. And of that 1.5, 70% sold one or less home last year. Yeah,
One home?
one or
Wow.
less home last year. 70%. So, that means there's like 900,000 realtors not doing anything, right? And when you have like teams like mine, they're doing over 200, and there's teams doing 1,000, 2,000, not many, but a lot. But so who's really doing any business? Not a lot of people, right? So these dinosaur brokerages are consolidating. And as an investor, the way that, what I think is really interesting about that is you're going to have way more sellers that don't have appropriate representation and just want to sell as easy as possible, right? As this over the next few years, as these kind of dinosaur brokerages fail and a lot of people leave the industry and AI affects everything, I think there's going to be less than 400,000 agents left when it's all said and done, which I don't have a problem with personally. I'm still going to be here. And I don't like doing business with agents that don't know what they're doing. So that'll help me a lot. Right. But because I try to hold our industry to a high standard. But as an investor, you're looking at, well, where are my opportunities going to come from? And I think that's a big portion of it. People need to pay attention to that. The other thing is, whilst most of the country, and if you listen to the news about real estate, you would think it's doom and gloom. But if you live in our area, you're like, it's not doom and gloom, right? So historically, around the country, there are markets that have lost 20 to 30% value already, and that's been happening since 23-ish. Uh, your Whereas here, let me see if he got in. Uh, Whereas here, we're even forecasted for another like 2.5 to 3% growth over the next year. So, and that's not a huge number, but that's what real estate was prior to COVID, right? So we're just at a normal rate now of growth versus losing for the last 3 years. Makes me feel really good about our area, but it also kind of tells you what to expect as an investor, right? Like you're not going to get crazy good deals here. Like their margins are a lot slimmer, a lot smaller, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on? Oh, I thought you were looking for it on the Zoom. I thought that's what you meant. I saw your text. I was like, I thought he was looking for the link. Good to see you, brother. Yeah, man.
This is
Hey,
Julius.
hey, nice to meet you, man. Well, yeah, yeah. So, um, yes, I was just sharing some, kind of stats about the market before we got into it. Our area generally is still going to grow about 2.6 to 3% over the next year, whereas like a lot of the areas around the country are losing 20, 30% in value. So we live in a really, really strong area. Another thing I wanted to share, interesting thing to mess around with as an investor, especially right now, is the idea of subject to investing. Have you heard of that? Have you guys heard of subject to? And
Just tell me, just did one.
yeah,
I've seen some things on, YouTube.
yeah.
Up to,
Well, you gotta think if you're a homeowner or investor and you bought in 2020 or 2021 or you refinance in that time period when rates were 3 or 4%. Like I have a 10 unit building, the rate's 4%. That's set to adjust at the end of next year. I'm probably going to go to 6 or 7%. Luckily, I've been raising my rents accordingly, but a lot of investors don't. And even experienced investors don't, because they're like, well, I like my tenant and they take really good care of the property. And that comes at a cost. Every year you don't raise your rents to market, you're losing money because your taxes are going to go up, your insurance is going to go up, your expenses on that property goes up, and you're not helping the tenants because when it's time for you to either sell it or actually raise to market, that jump up is going to hurt that person so much because they weren't ready for it, right? And whoever's going to buy that building, because it's not at market, is going to kick them out, right? So you're not actually doing them a favor by stifling the rents, right? You're setting them up for a pretty big failure. So subject to, which is becoming more and more popular, like the whole, owner financing, all these kind of things went away during COVID. Like when things were crazy, you didn't need to finance a property for someone, everyone's buying them, right? Now, because things are starting to loosen or get a little bit tighter. Hey, how are you? Uh, things are starting to get a little bit more like back to the norm, back to the way things were pre-COVID. You have sellers that still want a little bit way too much for their house, right? So a subject to example would be, let's say there's a seller that wants $1 million for a 10 unit property, and the property is really only worth like 850, just giving you an example, and they have a $500,000 mortgage on it. You can go to that seller and say, hey, I'll give you the million, right? I might even give you a little bit more, because what I want you to do is I want you to keep your mortgage in place, right? I want you to give me the property, and I'm going to put that mortgage in a trust, right? So ownership transfers, title transfers, but the loan stays in place, right? And I'm the trustee. Like you can't do this under an LLC. It has to be under your own name because an LLC cannot be the trustee for a trust. Um, so I'm gonna let you keep I'm gonna let you keep that mortgage. So it's gonna still stay on your credit or wherever it is. It's not transferring the mortgage because I don't want the bank to know. The minute the bank knows ownership changed, they're gonna trigger a callback on that loan, and I'm gonna have to refinance it or actually get a mortgage for it, right? So I'm getting your mortgage at 4%, 3%, whatever it is. And the difference that I would normally have to bring to the table, I want you to be the lender for that amount, right? They don't have the money. The money is just a loan, right? It's a note. It's a piece of paper that says they're lending you 500,000 because you're taking over their $500,000 mortgage, and you need another 500,000 to pay the million. So they're creating a $500,000 loan for you with the equity they have in their property, right? And you're paying them a very nominal amount, like just interest only payments. Try to keep the rate as low as possible because you want this deal to work. The deal has to work because you still have to pay that mortgage. You have to pay the interest only mortgage. You have to pay all your holding costs. And after your rents come in, you still have to make money, right? So for a seller, there's a lot of benefits. One, they're getting their property sold at a premium, right? Even if they're deferring getting that money, that's what they're doing. They're saying, you have 3 or 5 years to pay me back this full amount, right? So they're deferring actually getting their money, but they're getting interest on the money. They don't have to manage the property anymore, and they might not like managing it, right? That's why they're trying to sell it. Um, and there's some risk, of course, right? Like they're holding the mortgage. So like, what if you stop making payments, right? So there's that risk to the seller. But if it goes smoothly in 3 to 5 years, hopefully sooner, that person who's taking over the property subject to ends up purchasing it, pays them off the full amount. And there's also tax benefits. Like the seller might not want to claim a $500,000 gain this year, but 4 years from now, they might not care as much, right? So get yourself a little familiar with subject to. You're going to start hearing about them a lot more. Um, the right way to do them is through a lawyer. Like make sure an attorney, hey, how you doing? Make sure a real estate attorney handles this, but they're really great. Um, so before we get into our norm, I just kind of wanted to share some of those things before we get into our normal. This month's seminar is based on how to negotiate the deal. All right. Uh, I'm going to stop in between some of these slides and go over some kind of interesting or, different means of negotiating, but, we're going to get started. So just so you guys know, Grid is a global investor real estate community built for investors by investors. Not a guru. It's free information to help you grow and scale your real estate portfolios. Okay. Uh, our mission is to connect, learn from, and collaborate with like-minded people interested in building wealth and creating impact through real estate. I've found I've been doing this seminar now for years. I've met investors that I've done deals with. I've helped people actually purchase properties, do burrs, do flips, contractors that I've ended up working with. Like you build your network through networking like this. So it's really important. I love doing it. We welcome people of all experience levels. I've had people in here that aren't even investors or are just starting to think about it, and I have people with 500 units that have, co-taught this with me. So really interesting to hear from all different levels. That you don't have to be anything. You don't even have to be an investor yet. Uh, Grid's growing. They have a ton of members worldwide. It's a pretty large network. I'm always getting emails and calls from them like, hey, we have an investor that's in your area or a person in your area trying to sell a property. Do you know someone that's looking to purchase? So they have all these off-market opportunities. So my name is William Holder. I run the William Holder Realty Team. I'm with Real of Pennsylvania. I run this group because one, I got into real estate to be a real estate investor. My goal wasn't initially to be a realtor; it was to purchase real estate. Just found out you need money to purchase real estate. So I decided to start selling real estate, and then yada, yada, yada. Here I am. I kind of backed into being able to afford to buy real estate by selling real estate. It's still my passion, but it's a hobby. It's a side job, right? Like my main job is being a realtor, running a team. This for me is retirement eventually, and I'm not in a rush. I've learned there's no such thing as quick money, right? Like the older you get, the quicker you learn that. You hear all these guys, you see them with their Bugatti on Instagram, and they're like, "Let me give you the quick tips to retire in 1 year." And I'm like, "Stop! Doesn't exist. You rented that car. Chill out, okay? Like that doesn't exist. If it's too easy, something's wrong, okay? And that's what I've learned. So I'm personally just building a strong network of people that have helped over the years, and eventually maybe it'll turn into something, right? Uh, you can connect with me at William Holder Realty Team on Instagram or my phone, 610-657-6215. Email will@williamholderrealtyteam.com. So, like customary, we like to go around the room to introduce ourselves and to know each other a little bit because in the past, people in this room have done deals together. Actually, we were hoping another guy came today, was calling me about a deal to do with him. So maybe he'll show. All right. So you want to start?
My name is Bill, real estate investor. Look, we hit my first property, almost on renovating it, and then I'm trying to get a tenant there to rent it out. Doing the burn method, and then gonna pull that money out and hopefully find another deal.
We'll come back to you. We'll let you finish. Yeah.
Julius, currently an investor, pretty much jumped in and I did weight over my head, so I'm working out some deals, trying to get out of them and get creative with it.
Yeah.
Currently doing like room rentals,
Okay.
so I'm in the space of like being open to summer living homes and rental homes, that type of nature. But I'm looking to learn how to pivot because I can feel that there's definitely a pivot with the tenant that I'm interacting with, renovations, the whole. So, I'm excited, and yeah, that's me for right now.
Awesome.
I'm currently not an investor. I've known Will for a pretty long time. This is one of my friends I brought here to network, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were just talking about this, but I actually just like doing that.
Yeah.
So, but I'm always open to learn whatever I can
For sure.
in any space.
Yeah. You're an electrician as well.
Yes.
So
Oh,
we
what?
connect. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good to know.
Hi, I'm Rena. I guess I'm looking to be an investor. I'm
Okay.
looking for first, commercial property. So, I come from a real estate family, so I spent the last 10 years as an entrepreneur in the health tech and ed tech space, but I'm transitioning into real estate. My family's in all types of commercial, but I'm looking to get into hotels. So I'm looking for the last 2 months. I've been pretty aggressively looking for my first commercial property. And yeah, I'm just looking to learn and
Awesome.
as well. I live in California right now. So
Okay.
you feel like reconnect with the real estate scene here and be boots on the ground and
Awesome.
meet like accountants and lawyers since I'm building my team and
Nice.
need all the support I can get.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great space. If you ever need referrals, feel free to reach out. I'll send you like accountants and everybody. Yeah. We have I've had a few people like co-host this with me that are in all those spaces that are very reputable. Um, so you said you were originally from Delco, Swarthmore, like Montgomery County? Okay. Nice. Nice. Awesome. All right. So some important legal stuff. Don't sue me. I'm just giving you free information. Do with it what you as you will. Also, I do record this. It's on our YouTube page, so don't say anything you don't want to get canceled for. Right. So understanding what a motivated seller is huge. And the reason I brought up subject to prior to getting into this is because that's a motivated seller, right? If you're thinking about right now, like who would be a motivated seller, and you're seeing this all over Philly right now, where there are these 8 to 13 unit buildings that people started bought like they bought land in 2019, 2020, or like a older building, and they're like, oh well, there's all this money flooding the market at cheap interest rates. I'm going to knock this down, build a new 13 unit building, get a tax abatement, rent it for 7 or 8 years, condo them out before the taxes reset, and then sell them off, which is a great play if you realize that build's going to take you 3 years, right? And people don't realize that, especially new investors. They're very hopeful and they're like, I could get in and out of this thing in a year. No, your general apartment conversion of that size to, especially if it's a newer build in Philadelphia, where it takes you 6 to 12 months to get anything through L&I, is a 3-year project. So what happened with a lot of these people are they took out 1-year loans, and then the rates started to adjust each year. And now all of a sudden they're paying 7% interest only, and they can't afford the payment because they still haven't completed the job. So you're seeing a lot of those. Those are motivated sellers, right? Their lenders are also motivated sellers, right? So you can go purchase these loans fairly cheap from these lenders because they want to get out of them, right? So that's a motivated seller. That's a circumstance, right? You don't have to think on a small level as just like a single family house. There are these projects out there that when you get big enough, it's really a $5 million. It's a $5 million building, but you can get it for 3.2, right? And that's a large example of a motivated seller. A great example of that is there's a building, it's a famous building somewhere in San Diego, tall skyscraper building. So at the height of the market, when rates were 3%, it was on sale for 150 million. People thought everybody was going to buy it. It's down to like 46 million now because nobody's using commercial space. A lot of people aren't. The interest rates are much higher, so your cap rate is much lower. It's a big swing, right? Extreme example, but it happens. So those are sellers you need to pay attention to, right? So a seller who's compelled by circumstances or emotion to sell a property for less than the market would pay under normal circumstances, right? So, for a seller to be motivated, there must be something going on in their lives to motivate them. Remember, we are in the problem-solving business, and I try to say this to all my agents like that want to be really good sales agents. Sales is finding a problem or solving a problem for someone or creating a problem they didn't already know they had, right? And then helping them solve it. Okay. That's all sales is, right? What's your doctor doing? They're helping you, they're solving a problem or they're creating a problem. You don't have to sell your prescription. What's your car guy doing? My car's in the shop right now and I'm livid because nothing was wrong with it 3 weeks ago when I took it in for an inspection, and they're like, "Oh, this drip and yada 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 at $7,000." I'm like, "No, there's no issue there." And then a few days later, I'm hearing a knocking, and I'm like, "You guys get me? Did you get me?" They created a problem. I give them that. They're sales, but I don't know for sure. I'm just saying. I'm not BMW. Don't sue me. So. Understanding what a motivated seller is, find their problem or help them solve it. Okay.
When you go to a lender,
Mhm.
would they be willing to give you that information or?
Yeah. Yeah. If you call local credit unions, commercial banks, find out if whoever their asset, whoever their manager is for their loss department, they like to sell a lot of those things before they get too bad, right? Because you have to remember, people misunderstand, like banks don't actually want to foreclose, right? There is a ratio of bad loans they can have. And if that number is too high, they get a reduced rating on the crediting from the credit bureaus that lend them money. So usually if they can find a way to get that off their books before it becomes a bad rating, they will. So a lot of banks will sell you default notes at good prices. Yeah, yeah. A lot of these like funds that were put together to help people, like you're a rich person, you got $5 million, you want to give it to a hard money lender or why is the word escaping my brain right now? Portfolio lender, right? And that lender doesn't do a great job. He lends to those people that were building these 13-unit buildings. They want to get their money back, and they don't mind just breaking even or even taking a loss to get out of it. So there's a lot of that, right? So I'll give you an example of how this worked for me, and it starts really simple. This is a very basic example. About 3 years ago, I was looking for a flip. One of my partners posted on his Facebook, hey, anyone knows anyone that's looking to sell a house? Because off market is usually where you find the best deals, right? Um, his someone on his Facebook mentioned that her aunt was having an issue selling a house in Ridley Park, right? So he gets her number, reaches out to her. It's an estate situation. Four siblings, three sisters, a brother. They let the brother live in the house after the parents pass away with the, and I see this all the time with the like deal that he's supposed to take care of the house, he's supposed to pay the taxes, and eventually when he doesn't need to live there anymore, they sell it and split the money, right? Well, he doesn't take care of the house, he doesn't pay the taxes, he stops paying his utilities, he develops a drinking problem, every issue you could possibly worry about. And now the property might be sold at the sheriff's sale because you're not paying the taxes and they can't afford it. So they just want to sell the house, right? And this house, and I, as a realtor, I have to be honest with them. So I said, hey, I can list this and I can get you $140,000 for it right now, or I'll buy it from you for 80. And we settled on 95. And they were like, you can buy it, but you got to deal with my brother. And I was like, oof, how do I handle this problem? And I was like, I'll take the brother. I'll take the brother with the house. If the three of you are willing to sign off on this, I will take the brother with the house. And it wasn't even that big of a problem. Honestly, I showed up with a rack of beer and I was like, hey, man, let's talk. And we spoke. And next thing I know, he's in a moving truck, and like, wasn't that hard to convince him to leave? The place was a mess. Like it was quarter cent, the bunch of junk. It was a mess. But it was the best deal I ever bought because I flipped that and I made like $80,000 on the flip. And I've never made that much money on a flip before. And I don't throw that number out there lightly because it's not normal to make that much money. But I solved a big problem, right? That's a motivated seller. You have to get creative though.
Uh, and what is the reason why you could have listed it for 140,000 and it may or may not have sold, or
Yeah, basically,
95? So
I could have listed it with the brother being there, but they didn't want to have to deal with all that. They didn't want to have to deal with the showings, getting him to let people in to see the property.
right.
They just really wanted the money as soon as possible, right? Because I don't know what all their circumstances were.
Yep.
So they were like, yeah,
Convenient.
yeah, like just yeah. And I always put it in writing because I'm not trying to lose my real estate license over someone saying I robbed them, right? So I put it in writing, like, hey, this is what I can get for the house on the market initial here, right? Like that's but wholesalers don't have to do that. Wholesalers can come into your house and tell you that it's worth 80 when it's really worth 140, and they'll go sell it for 110, before they ever buy it from you, right? Uh, so the two big motivators, like we talked about, circumstance and emotion. Again, going back to that story in Ridley Park. Circumstance, maybe the seller may be motivated by property condition, abandoned, needs work, fire, water, mold damage, unsellable. If you drive by a house that's looks like it's abandoned, look up the person. It's very easy to find people's information these days. They're everywhere, right? Every website has a skip trace option, right? Um, Property's unsellable. No one but an investor would buy it. Uh, there was a property in Folsom that came up that an investor bought, and he bought it with the knowledge that it had termite damage, and the township wouldn't give him. He went in and did all the work and didn't pull permits, and then they condemned it on him. So then he was just reselling it for essentially almost what he paid for it because he didn't do it the way the township wanted, right? That's an opportunity, right? So uh finances, can't afford repairs, moved, or has two mortgages. And again, this is another situation where a lot of investors over leveraged, and when their arms came due, things changed, right? Time frame and external pressure. So there's pre-foreclosure. There's a gazillion websites that will give you pre-foreclosure lists. I mean, you could go on Zillow and click in pre-foreclosure and you see all the pre-foreclosure. It's not always correct. My my first house, I saw on Zillow it was a pre-foreclosure. I'm like, excuse me? Like I live here. And you know, luckily I like said this, I'm the owner and something's wrong here and they changed it, but it's not perfect, but you can get the list, right? So now that was 10 years ago. I'm sure the data is a lot better now. Um, and then convenience, again, absentee landlord, out of state inheritance or inheritance or estate. You can literally pull absentee landlords or out of state owners and get all of their numbers. Like there's sites like PropStream. Uh, I mean, there's like a handful of sites you can easily get all of this information. And you don't even have to call them. You can hire a dialer, right, to call and find motivated sellers for you. Okay. So get creative. If you work full time, if you have obligations, you could hire someone overseas for $5 an hour to dial 300 people a day for you. You know, like you can get very creative. Any questions so far?
Yeah, with that deal that you gave as an example, who did you make the negotiation with?
The sister who was like the executrix. Yeah, she was like there was one that was the executrix. It was the lead.
Is it the same person that made the post?
It was well, it was like her niece that wrote, yeah, that got in touch with my partner and connected him to her. And I mean, I'm glad we did because a month later, someone else could have gotten that deal, right? Or it could have just gotten foreclosed. You know, I've been in situations where I had a client, it was probably 7 or 8 years ago. I had a client who didn't mention to me that he was doing the same thing. Younger guy, parents passed away, sister and brother decide brother's going to live in the house. She's living in another state. He's not paying the taxes. And so they need to sell it. I list it and he's like, dude, I got a notice. I'm going to lose the house if we don't sell it in 30 days. And like, I went and paid, I wrote a note, but I went and paid the taxes. We made a deal and he paid me back from the settlement sheet, but he was going to lose 140,000. I think we sold it for 200,000. Actually, it was in Alden, and he was going to lose 200 grand over like $8,000 in taxes. And like that's, I was like, you let that happen to you. Like that sucks, right? But that's out there. That's going on, and things aren't getting easier. I mean, AI is stealing everyone's jobs. So like, how are they paying their mortgage, right? Pay attention, you know. Um, because you could be saving. You might when you look at it and you think, oh, I'm only going to give them 200,000 for this $300,000 house. Well, they might lose the $200,000, right? Because they can't afford to pay the taxes on it or something silly like that. So when you're factoring emotions, just remember the owner no longer loves the house and is emotionally detached because of uh, these items, conditions with no time, money, or desire to make repairs, embarrassment, not willing to list, show the property. I've had so many sellers tell me as a realtor, I don't want people to see my pictures of my house. I'm like, what do you care? You're not going to live here anymore. You know, like this is how you get the most money for your house is by putting it on the market, right? It's it's a no-brainer. If anyone ever tells you the most money's off market, they're lying to you, right? The most money is on market. More eyes, more potential buyers. That's the way to go. But if that seller is that stubborn, then there's an opportunity, right? Um, uh, Emotional distress. There's divorce, and there's bad rental, vacancies, bad tenants, poor cash flow. If you're a landlord in Philadelphia, you know all about that. But I'm done with Philly, man. I need a timeout from the Philadelphia landlording market. I was up to 15 units. I'm down to 2 properties, and if I could sell them right now, I would. It's like a squatter a year almost. It was been my average for the last 3 years with Philly properties, and Philly just doesn't care. So yeah. Uh, Sellers are motivated by circumstance, right? They need to sell the house, and the seller motivated by emotion wants the house out of their life. Okay. And you could hear that in people's voice, right? You're when you're purchasing deals, you're in sales, right? So you are having a sales conversation with someone, and you're looking for any symbol or sign they give you of desperation, right? I was having this conversation with a friend of mine who's an investor today, and he was the agent. I went to show this property. It's like right over the border of PA and Delaware and Claymont. And the agent called me on the way because I booked the appointment, and she's like, "Just wanted to see how your showing is going to go. Like, is your buyer really motivated?" And I would never do that as an agent, because to me that means that seller is super desperate, right? And that's the agent tipping their seller's hat. She's telling me the seller's really motivated. Like, why would you tell me all of that? Because now my investor client's going to come on 40 grand under asking, right? Instead of, we might have came in 10, right? So that's, you look for signs of desperation, right? And you could do that by asking a couple simple questions, right? So phone rings, and understand, when you're speaking to a seller, be friendly, but you aren't their friend. You're trying to make a deal. So you have to have some sort of authority in the conversation. And they have to see you as a position of authority, or else you're going to lose, right? Uh, 2 ears, one mouth. If you're talking more than you're listening, you've lost the conversation, right? And that is sales 101. Okay. If you find yourself, if you're listening, if you're re-listening to your conversation and 75% of it was you talking, that person wasn't interested in talking to you, right? You have to ask questions to get them to open up to you, to give you the information you need so that you know what their motivation is. Okay. Um, so to determine their motivation, you have to go after basic info, ask open-ended questions. How did you hear about us? Is the house on the market? If so, have you had offers on it? Why are you selling? Last time the kitchens and bathrooms were renovated? When was the roof, HVAC, water heater, windows installed? You're asking them questions about their property, their home, to get them to speak to you, get them to open up about the property and build rapport, right? There's an acronym FORD: family, occupation, recreation, dreams. If you think of every conversation you've ever had with anyone, it's one of those four things, right? So if you're having a conversation with someone, it's awkward, it seems weird, you don't know what to talk about, think FORD, right? And it works in every scenario. It works in being it works if you're selling pharmaceutical devices, it works if you're selling real estate, it works if you're buying real estate. Find a part of the conversation you could have with that person to build rapport, and then open them up by asking more questions. They will give you everything you need to know if you get them talking. And they'll straight up tell you, like, I'll take 80 grand for it. Like, if you get them talking. It's happened so many times. And it's just understanding how to have that conversation. All right. What else needs to be fixed or made better to sell the house for full market value? Is the mortgage current? This is important because if you're buying investment properties and you don't know if the mortgage current, it might get foreclosed on before you close. And I've had that happen before, where I had a client that was just looking to buy a house for his family, and 3 days before the closing, I got a call from the listing agent. He said it just went to foreclosure. At the sheriff's sale. I'm like, excuse me?
Ooh.
You didn't think to tell us like that? But and and it's crazy because it went to foreclosure, came back on, it didn't sell at the sheriff's sale because this was pre-COVID and nobody would have paid that amount for it. Now people would be all over that price. Came back on the market with a bank-owned agent that I happen to know and do business with, and we got it. My buyer ended up having to pay 20 grand extra for it because it sold for more at this point, but because it was all cleaned out and we had other offers to go after. But it was like a crazy 9 months of like, we should have had this 9 months ago. So understand if the property is if there's any issues with the mortgages, are there any judgments, liens to be paid, how much is owed on the house. You need to determine if and how you can help them. Again, going back to that example of me paying the guy's taxes so he didn't lose the house at the sheriff's sale, like, you might have to do things like that to get some deals done, right? And that's you solving a problem, right? Um, and straight up ask them how much they want for it, right? Like, if you can get them to tell you a number before you ever spit out a number, you might have saved yourselves tens of thousands of dollars, right? Because you might be thinking too aggressively, right? In terms of like, you're being way too nice about the number you're offering. Sometimes people just want to pay their bills off and get 10 grand to move on with their life. Right. And if that's what they tell you they want to sell something for, you buy the property if it makes sense. Right. So just like in any sales or marketing understanding, you have to have queued up scripts. And like I don't look at scripts from a negative connotation because I think of it this way, like at any job you do, you're practicing having conversations about that job at that job, right? If you're an electrician, you know the questions to ask at the site, right? That's if you're in real estate or buying properties, you need to know the conversation you're having. If you go there with nothing queued up in your brain, you're going to lose because again, they're going to control the conversation. So understand scripts, they're important. We find that most people have a number in mind and it helps us find the right solution when we know where you're coming from. You say something like that to someone, they will tell you what the numbers they were thinking. If they are a good negotiator, they say, well, I want to see what you have to offer, and then good, touche, right? But that's what you're hoping for, right? So there's a few things, and I'm gonna stop. Any questions where we're at right now? No? Nothing fun? Yeah. I'll give you a fun fact. I was reading my kid a book last night, and I found out that or bats are the only mammals with wings. Didn't know that. Learned that last night. Yeah. So I texted my friends immediately. They're like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm reading a book. You know. So yeah, uh yeah. So a few things to know about what's going on in the market right now. And we're on a sidebar. Okay. Um, there are uh you're starting to see cycle inflections. You're starting to see that major firms are entertaining a new real estate cycle finally. Okay. And 2097 through 2007, it was up because of mortgages, right? They removed the glass ceiling. Mortgage lenders got a little crazy. They started doing all these arm loans. People were able to borrow without any proof of funds. If you ever read the Big Short or seen the movie, there's a scene where there's like a stripper and she has 4 properties, and then someone explains to her like, hey, when this adjusts, your mortgage payments are going to be this, not just the interest. And she was like, wait, what? I'm going to have to pay this back? People don't know. So if you take advantage of them, they will make mistakes, right? And a lot of people made those mistakes and mortgage companies capitalized on it. And the entire economy crashed in 2008. And since then, it's been a gradual climb, very normal upward swing until 2020 happened. And then there was a acceleration of value. Some people say it's catching up for what happened in 2008 and the slow growth. Some people say it's because they flooded the market with money at a very, very low rate and it forced a significant amount of inflation, right? I'm not an economist, right? But what I can tell you is that's stopped. Not everywhere. We're still fairly strong here. We're still getting a normal 2 to 3% growth year over year over the last couple of years here. But throughout most of the country, they're down 20 to 30% in markets, right? And it's been happening since 2023. And if you listen to the national news, it seems like it's gloom and doom in real estate. But then you look at what's happening here and you're like, I have value keeps going up, right? That's because of we're in a strong area. We're in an area that didn't get flooded with people coming into the area because of COVID, right? People didn't come here to work, be like transient workers because we're already established area. People were going south. They were going to the Poconos. They were going to the beaches. And that's why the Airbnb market blew up. And now that market's super condensed, right? So things are normalizing. And in our area, normal is good. In a lot of areas, it's not so good right now, right? So there are repricing opportunities in markets. If you pay attention to the markets that were like the Poconos, there's deals there, right? The shore towns, like not Avalon, because that's always going to be expensive, but like you spread a little bit further down, you're seeing more and more deals because people aren't making enough on these Airbnbs anymore. When they were 80% occupied, now they're 50% occupied. Well, they paid a lot of money for that property, so they might have to sell it. There's opportunities, right? Down south, the Bible Belt area of the country, like there's a lot of properties that need to be sold down there and they're sitting for a long, long time, right? Because those economies in those states aren't as good. Opportunities, right? So pay strong attention. There are a lot of markets that are only recording listings having to go down in price before they sell. Not happening here, but if you're like, well, I can't invest here, look other places, right? Um, uh, you have to look at like sector divergence. So not a lot of real estate is equal. Industrial, multifamily, commercial, you're seeing like logistics centers, like things like those are super high right now. Whereas office space, nobody needs anymore because everybody works from home, right? So whereas all these office buildings were they were so strong and safe of an asset. Now most of these cities are converting office spaces into condos and apartments because people don't need offices, right? Like you don't need offices to, I mean, have you ever been on a Zoom recently? Like nobody's in an office. They're all at home, the kids are in the background screaming. Like that's what work is now. So those are sectors you can pay attention to. And there's a, there's a thing called the Warren Buffett close. It's like a sales thing, but essentially people that are like, well, I'm waiting for the market to go down, right? Because they want to invest here. It's like Warren Buffett's worth $117 billion or whatever. Like he never waited for anything. He just kept investing, right? He shifted where his investments were, but he kept investing. And for me, with real estate, if you're always waiting, it's always going to be more expensive, right? So why not just get in? So what if the market goes down 20%? You're holding the property. It's going to come back. That's how capitalism works, right? It's never going to get cheaper ever. If it does, America's done, right? So that's like if you're waiting to invest, just go in, like do it. I don't care if the market crashes next year. You're planning on keeping the property anyway, right? So, with that being said, make the offer. All right. Be friendly, but authoritative, determine motivation, make the offer. Don't hesitate. It will take you 10 offers before you get one accepted. You learn that, right? You're you have to be patient. You have to make the offer that makes sense for you. Don't make an offer because you're up against competition. Don't make an offer because you love the property or the location. It's mistakes, mistakes, mistakes. Don't make an offer because that's the specific perfect deal for you, asset class, all this stuff. It's near my house. I don't care. Make the offer based on what the numbers say, right? There's no emotion in real estate investing. It's all numbers. All right. Uh, if you're at a computer, it's easy to develop an offer because if you don't have a spreadsheet that you're working off of and you're already really comfortable with, you can just download one or Google one, or you can ask ChatGPT to tell you what the right offer for this property is. It's wild, like how easy it's become. Like if you're not using any version of AI right now, you're gonna be left in the dust, right? Right. Yeah. Like it's insane how, and the people that are using it are accelerating at a rapid rate. The people that are not are getting left behind, right? And it's just what it is. I didn't make it. I'm just playing the game, right? Um, I had last night I'm like putting together a job posting for a sales manager for our team. And so I went on chat and I'm like, hey chat, I need a sales manager. These are the systems. I didn't have to tell it the systems we use because it's plugged into everything I use. And I was like, this is what I'm looking for, metric, blah, blah, blah. It gives me like a 2-page job description. And then it's like, hey, do you want me to create a spreadsheet that has these analytics that they can fill in monthly for you for your agents? And do you want me to link it to those systems for you as well? And then it was like, I was like, yes. And then it was like, do you want me to color code certain sections? And it just kept going. And I'm like, yeah, just do what you think, like you got this, like that's where it is. Like, whereas I would have to pay someone or go pay, there's like systems that charge $1,000 a month for me to link like my all my metrics and put it on nice little graphs, and my agents can see scoring. Chat just did that. So if you're not using AI, and you could use it as its simplest form, you could see a property and copy the link and throw it in chat and say, hey chat, based on the normal way investors evaluate cap rates and the information you can get from this listing, can you tell me if this is a good deal or not? And on a very surface level, it will give you basic analytics. Now, if you can then ask the listing agent for a copy of the rent roll or the T12 or a cap rate that they ran on it, and you add that in and say, chat, analyze this for me, like seconds. I used to have to wait till I got home at night after I did all my other work to spend 2 hours analyzing a property because I'm waiting for the listing agent to get me information back, and I don't have everything, and I have to go searching, and I'm looking through their sheets to see like what they missed. It's 3 minutes of work now, right? That's how you guys need to use this stuff. You could say, chat, hey, I live in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. Give me the best market that you see prices reducing in right now that I could possibly go invest in, right? Prompt it. So if you're at a computer or your phone, the seller just called me back from 123 Main Street, and I was thinking about investing in this property. What do you think I should pay for it based on the seller's telling me? And as they're talking to you, you're writing in, they're telling me that the property needs a new roof and it's leaking, and enter while you're still talking to the person. Okay. That's how easy life is becoming. Take advantage of it. All right. Yeah.
Software for like real estate, because I was looking at like AI platforms to real estate acquisitions.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like I've used Claude or ChatGPT to like generate numbers, but I haven't been able to find something that can pull like source leads for me.
When you say source leads, what do you mean?
Or I guess I'm looking for like at commercial properties.
Mhm.
Properties
Mm.
that are like kind of across all the properties.
Yeah. So the problem with that is, the biggest problem with that is, and this is where the brokers are going to win. Uh, Commercial real estate brokers keep things in their pocket, right? They're very protective of their listings because they want to double end them, right? So a lot of it is not online, and a lot of it's behind paywalls. Like CBRE is like a big, you have to get access to their back end system to and you have to sign a NDA for them to even give you any of the information from the listing. So I don't think it's going to be that easy for there to be a perfect system. And that's probably why you're running into that issue. Could you find information and upload it to systems like Chat or Rock or whatever to help you run numbers? Sure. But you have to, like, they'll make you go searching for those numbers, right? It's not as easy as it pulling from a database. And there's no like, so like LoopNet and Crexy are like the two main uh um MLSs commercial real estate agents use. A lot of it's behind paywalls. And like they want you to pay for access because they want to sell them themselves. Um, so yeah. Um, Knowing a simple formula is helpful, right? If you know that you want to make uh if you know that 70% of ARV minus renovations is a quick way to analyze a property, right? It's an oversimplification, but it can work, right? So if someone calls you, let's say you're farming Leadham in Ridley Park, and you know every twin in Leadham selling for $300,000 right now, ARV, like that's what it's worked, fixed up. and you're marketing that neighborhood and a seller calls you and they're like, hey, I have this property, I got one of your mailers, or I saw you posted on wherever that you're looking for properties, and I want 200,000 for it. And you're like, all right, well, how's the roof, what's the heater like, and you're doing your quick math in your head and it's got like 100 grand in work, right? Well, 70% of 300K is $210,000 ish. And you know that it needs $100,000 in worth. So you're down to 110. They want 200. Probably not going to work, right? Uh, Quick math can help you eliminate a lot of the tire kickers, right? Um, and the reason people use 70%, it's not because they're looking to make a 30% profit margin, because nobody's making a 30% profit margin. Nobody, right? It's because when you factor the closing cost to buy that property, the closing cost to sell the property, the holding costs in the middle, and like all of your financing, you might be walking away with 9 to 15% when it's all said and done, right? It's not much more than the market, right? Like you can make 6 or 7% right now in the stock market, maybe even a little bit more. Comparatively, it's not that much more. So people have to get really comfortable with knowing that. I think to understand, set the appointment. You want to try to get face to face with the person. You want to see the property, of course, right? Especially if you're not like getting these crazy good margins, like you want to see the property because you want to know there's things you guys have seen all these pictures online, right? Every house looks beautiful. And then you walk through it and you're that they didn't show that ceiling falling in, right? Like I get it. I have great photographers too. Okay, they're doing their job, but they will not show you the flaws, right? Like, you can't tell when you're in a photo if the floor is gonna fall in as you walk in, right? So that's how like I want you to think of this. It's have I invested in properties that I have not seen personally? Yes, but I'm very cautious about it. I bought properties in Pittsburgh where I know the market. I have a property manager. I have an inspector. I have a local agent I trust. So I let them go walk the property for me. Let my agent go first. Then I have the property manager come back. And if it passes the two smell test and they send me videos, then I make an offer contingent upon an inspection. And then I have my inspector go back. So there's layers to me making this offer without me seeing the property. Uh, do I love doing that? No. Have I been burned by it? Not really yet. I'm sure I will eventually, but you have to have the right team for it. And that's where if you're investing out of your area, and like Pittsburgh's only 4.5 hours away, but I can't get to Pittsburgh. I don't have time to get to see my sister's kid 20 minutes away. So like if you're busy with family and you're investing in other markets, you have to have the right team and trial and error with the team thing, right? Like uh you might have the right property manager, but not the right contractor, or the property manager might not have the right contractor. So trial and error, piece it together. So set an appointment, be friendly but authoritative. Determine motivation, make an offer, set an appointment, right? Set the appointment and be sure to make sure all parties are available to sign. Okay, this is, so check for power of attorney. You have to have the right person there to sign the documentation, and they're never there. So ask the question over and over and over again. Are all parties responsible for the home going to be there during this walkthrough, right? Because I cannot have you sign anything that's illegal. It doesn't make this means nothing, right? And the amount of times I've been there where it's the tenant trying, trying like I'm like, what are you doing? Like who are you? And so it happens. Okay. Um, right now, investment properties in general are returning, if they're good investment properties, 7 to 9%. Okay. Get comfortable with those percentages, right? Uh, there were higher numbers a few years ago because the interest rates were lower, right? So your spread was better. The interest rate's higher now. They're coming down, like the 30 years. My brother's actually doing a refinance right now, and he's going to get a 30-year for 5.5%, because he has 30% equity, good credit, things like that. But that's where I thought rates are going to go back to eventually anyway, because that's where they were pre-COVID. 2019, the rates were 5.5%. We're almost back to that. So we did this dip to crazy rise to coming back to the norm, right? Number just seemed to work. I don't, again, I'm not an economist. At the house, if the seller's there, have them show you the house, re-ask the questions from your phone call, ask direct questions about deficiencies. You're doing this because you're trying to get them to downsell the house to you, right? If I'm walking through and around a house with a seller, they will tell me all the flaws about the house. Like, especially if they're a motivated seller that is calling me to offload their investment property, they'll tell me why they're offloading their investment property, right? Like, they'll tell me about all the leaks and all the tenant calls and all the issues and all the like, it will tell you. Just ask them, right? And do the math in your head as they're telling you what this is going to cost you to fix, right? It won't tell you there's bees behind the walls because they might not know. But um, ask them how long things have been leaking, broken, moldy. Um, make the offer and your pitch all cash as is, no repairs, quick closing, paid closing costs. Here's the thing: your average seller does not know you're not buying their house cash, right? And if you're a wholesaler, like, you're not buying their house at all. So all they hear is all cash. They don't know to think, well, I need proof of funds, right? They don't know to think like, uh, are you assigning this contract? That's the investment world. And that's why most good deals are found off market, not on, because they don't have representatives. That's why a realtor is important, right? Just, little, have a contract ready to sign, get a lockbox, so you could put your, or get a lockbox put on so your contractor come back, explain that your partner maybe at closing. That's for the wholesaler part of this, if you're doing that stuff. Understanding seller psychology. A truly motivated seller will try to sell you the house. You'll know it when you hear it. You hear it in their voice. They want you to buy this place. They are desperate to get rid of it. Try negative selling. This sounds like a really nice house. Why do you need help selling it? These are all sales tactics. They are important when you're trying to get a good deal on a property. Okay. So a few things. I'd like to scream it from the roof because I still believe this to this day. The Burr method is the best method of investing in real estate. Are you familiar with Burr? All right. I'm sure you've heard of Burr, but it's the hardest. Okay. It is the hardest because it combines all facets of investing in real estate. You have to find a deal, you have to source it, you have to buy it, you have to renovate it, you have to rent it, you have to refinance it, and you have to start all over. And you're not doing that for a lot of money, right? And this is where people don't understand. Your average Burr, especially in an area like ours where the property taxes are as high as they are and insurance is as high as it is, you're making a couple $100 a month on that door if you do a good job. You're creating a lot of equity, and hopefully you're able to reuse your money a lot quicker if you didn't leave money in it. So the win is the equity, not the cash flow. And if you're playing the cash flow game, don't do the Burr method, right? Start somewhere else. Start with flips. Personally, I thought early on, when like 2011, when I started listening to Bigger Pockets and all these things and Rich Dad Poor Dad, I'm like, I'm never going to do a flip. I never want to pay the IRS any taxes, right? You Flips are the income to your business. Okay. You can't open up a pizza shop and have no income coming and just make sweet pizzas, right? Like, you can't just make uh specialty pizzas that every now and then someone's going to come in and want to pay $20 for that slice. You need like your pepperoni, you need the money makers, you need the things that are going to keep bringing money into your business whilst you build up your assets. Okay. So if you're an investor, you have to find ways to get cash capital, and flips is one of them. Now, if you're a syndicator, something like that, that's a different way to get capital. but you're paying for it because you're paying people back interest on those things. Okay. So, but if you're looking to invest, the Burr method, which scales to every level, right? A row home to a 10 unit to a hotel, because you can Burr anything, and you don't have to do a lot of work. When you get to the cap rate game, it's even more fun because when we did the apartment building one this like late last year, the guy who was here, he has, I think, 500 or 600 units he syndicates. And he's showing you his spreadsheets, and it's like, oh yeah, I bought this property and I added like a $20 fee for people that wanted parking closer to the door, right? Well, $20 over 100 units per month, his cap rate just escalated, right? And then he's like, now when his cap rate went up, he could go to the bank and say, hey, I have this much value. Let me take a loan out for that value, right? And then bring the cap rate back down a little bit. He said, oh, for these, if you want door trash service, you want to be able to put your trash outside of your door and someone to come by and pick it up, an extra $20 a month onto your rent. Things that you get so creative over that people will pay for. And you add that up over the amount of doors you have in that unit or that hotel or whatever. If it's a hotel and you're like, well, I can charge $3 for a bottle of water that I'm putting in there for one, that's income to the business. And now you can put that income on your cap sheet and your value of your property goes up because of the amount of income you're generating. You don't actually have to do work to generate value. You just have to charge people for it. Find something to charge people for, right? That's why it gets really fun when you scale to the super high units, but you have to get there, right? So start small, do a row home, then do a duplex, then do a quad, then find a 7 unit, then clump them all, take the equity and go buy a 30 unit, right? Start all over, clump your 230 units together, buy a hotel, right? It's Monopoly. You're literally playing Monopoly. That's all it is, right? And understanding tax code, doing 1031 exchanges, things of that nature. But it all starts with learning how to negotiate and make offers and find off market deals, right? And that's where this gets really, really interesting. If you learn the basics and you get really good at the basics, everything else comes with it over time. Questions? Nothing? Nothing fun?
Okay, so
Yeah.
I was just thinking, I don't know if you hit on it, but you were saying that you were new to the area, and I'm not sure like or what happened, but it does change. Like you're kind of like going to it's one of like of the buying a lot of it's on the market. It's common for a wholesaler to come to you and you're new to the area, which is my experience. New to the market, which is my experience, that you say, I don't have body, but they're attorney I trust. That wholesaler, they have someone they work with, and when you go to the table to finish the deal, but you don't put them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're going to have some, but
Yeah.
walked away from a couple deals where they didn't pan out just because I didn't have that inspector. And it was just, we could have closed on this date, and it was just a no-go because my guy wasn't making work. I didn't have anybody, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was just food for thought.
Yeah. No, that's really, really true. And it's also why I have like multiple people for every certain different thing. Like I have 3 accountants in my phone, like 3 possible attorneys, uh, 3 electricians. Like, when you ask me for somebody, I send you 3 people, right? I'm like, do the homework here because I've been burned so many times in so many different ways that I'm just like, I'll give you options, but that's the best I can do because I can't promise you what's going on in that person's life right now isn't going to lead to them doing something that they shouldn't do, right? Uh, so yeah, no, it's super, super true. Um, and right now, like Redfin had a report that investor shares of certain markets are declining, which is interesting because there's a lot of institutional buyers, but I think there's a lot of tax code and things happening that are causing a lot of these institutional buyers to lean away from they were going heavy into like single family homes and they're starting to lean back towards the apartment buildings and commercial spaces. Um, I don't know why. I think it might have to do with tech and people wanting more like of these large industrial spaces for all these servers. I don't know where they're gonna put them all. But there's a big shift. The I would be really, really careful in the super low end markets right now. Like very careful. Section 8 careful because uh I read an article. There's a McDonald's in the Midwest somewhere. I don't remember. And they just tested running their operation with from 63 employees to 5 employees with AI. And it worked. And it was a $1.8 million investment. And they'll recoup that investment in about 2 years when you factor less employment costs. When that works, they're all going to do it. And there's 3.2 million jobs in fast food in America. If 90% of those jobs evaporate, that's your lower end tenant class. And that gets really scary, right? So pay really close attention to the lower end right now because it's accelerating super fast. Try to get as much of your tenants that are in B and lower markets, even C markets, on some sort of housing. Um, because we're gonna have to have universal basic income, and housing is just that, right? Like, so that's happening very quickly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What does that mean? Stay away from the lower side?
No, I'm saying if you're doing it, try to get them to have like a voucher, right? Section 8,
Oh, okay.
yeah, things of that nature,
Yeah,
like
okay.
government backed, state backed, county backed, because uh, the government's going to have to fund for all these lost jobs, or else they're going to have a very unhappy population and crime is going to skyrocket. So, I'm not Mr. Doom and Gloom. I'm usually pretty positive, but that is something I'm paying close attention to because you see these things and you're like, wait, what's happening? And it's happening very quickly. 2 years ago, ChatGPT wasn't what it is today. That happened very quickly. I have people that are calling me to become real estate agents that were um like coders and like graphic designers. These jobs are going away very fast because who's going to hire a graphic designer when I could just plug in some prompts and get what I want in seconds, right? That's the where things. So not just lower end, but higher, like generally higher paying jobs are going to go away too. So uh, some niche markets. So we talked about tech, AI, and automation. AI is creeping into property evaluations. You brought it up. Um, there's a lot of property managers. Like, so I own a property management company, and we're messing with some software that's like predictive. So it's predicting like upcoming expenses, how much you need to allocate, uh, potential tenant issues. Like the software is getting good on like the management side. Uh, yeah, eh, yeah, it's pretty fun because before I had to think like, okay, I just bought this property. I didn't replace the roof because it was probably at half of its life. But they're using AI to predict like based on weather patterns, like changes in the like when that roof, when I need how much I need to put away, what percentage. Like it is getting great on that side of it. Um, but you also don't need a lot of property managers anymore. Like what's more responsive? Waiting for your property manager to come in the morning to respond to all these tenant issues, or an AI texting with your tenants immediately at all hours of the night and setting up appointments for you, and that exists already. So it's it's wild, man. Like it's nuts. I mean, I have it for my real estate business. Like I get out of an appointment and I can text or call my AI assistant and give her all the notes to put into my CRM. And she'll do it and set my next appointment for me and tell me what my calendar looks like. Like it's there. So um uh pay attention to migration and demographics. Like I feel really comfortable where we're at, um because I've seen what happened around the country during COVID and kind of post COVID, and we've stayed very stable, if not accelerated. I think that's a lot to do with this area is extremely, extremely old, and there's a lot of healthcare jobs here. There's a lot of education-based jobs here. Those fields aren't going away anytime soon, but pay attention. Those would be if I start to see shifts in how education's handled in America or like um, the healthcare industry, I would start to pay attention to our local economy, right? That's when you'll see things shift here. The number one employer in Pennsylvania are hospitals, so that's why it's fairly stable. Whereas areas that like there were all these plants they were building in, I think it was Alabama for EV plants because of the Biden administration changes. Trump comes in, all goes to a screeching halt. And those economies that were expecting 30,000 jobs or whatever, you know, done, right? So political changes affects everything too, right? Okay. So what did you guys learn?